My name is Denise McKelvey, and I will be the moderator for this evening's candidate debate. Joining me is Mr. Tom Collins with the Clean Elections Commission. This Citizens Clean Election Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by the voters in 1998. Participation as a clean elections candidate is strictly voluntary. The system provides full funding for qualified candidates who agree to abide by the Clean Elections Act and rules. To qualify for funding, participating candidates must illustrate the support of their constituents by gathering $5 qualifying contributions from registered voters in their legislative district. The candidates agree to adhere to contribution and spending limits and may not accept money from special interest groups. They also agree to participate in these debates. As we move through the debate, we encourage audience questions. If you have questions, please print them clearly on the card you were given when you walked in and hold it up. One of our volunteers will pick up the cards and deliver them to me. We screen the questions for clarity to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. If you need another card, just raise your hand. There's an independent timer who will see to it that all candidates have equal time to answer the questions and will tell them when their time is up. Our format this evening will be opening statements at 3 minutes each, a quick lightning round, 2 minutes each to answer the audience questions, 2 minutes to answer the candidate questions, and 3 minutes for the closing statements. We ask that you remain polite to all the candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with anything being said. This means no applause, outbursts, or cheers, except for now when we're going to introduce the candidates. Mr. Solomon Baldenegro is a Democrat running for a seat in the Senate. Ms. Olivia Cajero Bedford is a Democrat running for a seat in the Senate as well. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting with the Senate. The closing order will be determined by reverse alphabetical order by last name. Mr. Baldenegro, will you please start your opening remarks?
Testing. Hello, everybody. First of all, I want to thank you all for coming out, and I want to thank the Clean Elections Commission for putting on this event for us today. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Salomon Sal Baldenegro. I'm a native of Tucson, born and raised. I went to public schools here in Tucson my whole life. I'm currently a digital media specialist and a boys soccer coach at Desert View High School. I come from a family with a long history of giving back to the community of Tucson and Southern Arizona. My grandfather was a union leader in Hayden, Arizona, where he helped found the local union there in Hayden. My father has spent a lifetime working for the Chicano community here in Tucson, and decades of his struggle to make our community a better place for us all. My mother is also someone who's not as well known as my father, but who has also dedicated her life to giving back to the community. She spent decades as a community advocate and activist and was a founding member of the Tucson-Pima County Women's Commission. So with the values that they instilled in me from a young age, these values have guided me throughout my life as I also seek to give back to the Tucson community and serve it and make it a better place. I've been very active in the community here. I've been in the front lines to stand up to gun violence. I've been on the front lines to stand up against homophobia and to support gender equality. I've been on the front lines to fight SB 1070, to protect education in Tucson. I've been doing a lot of work over my life to build a better place for us all and build a better community that we can be proud of. I'm proud to be a Tucsonan. I'm very happy and proud to call myself a Tucsonan, and that's why I'm running for office. I think that as senator, I will help to make our community a better place, and I will provide the strong, progressive leadership that this district needs. And that's why I've decided to run, and thank you very much for your support.
Thank you. Ms. Cajero Bedford?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm Senator Olivia Cajero Bedford, and I'm running for re-election for the same reason I have always run, and that is I want to be a part of the fight at the legislature. I love serving my constituents and fighting for our principles. I do the job well and serve their interests. I'm in my 12th year of public service, 8 in the State House, and in my 4th year in the Senate. I serve on the powerful Appropriations Committee and have for 10 of my 12 years. With the final budget that we just did, we did a $9.2 billion budget for fiscal year 2015. I negotiated for and got $600,000 into the budget for Pima Community College operations and workforce development. I stand up for equal rights for everybody. This session, standing up, has meant fighting to block legislation to attack a woman's right to safe medical care. Senate Bill 1062 passed in the Senate and the House, and our Democratic caucuses in the House and the Senate were quick to make sure that the business community, the nation, and everyone around the world knew about this discriminatory measure before it got to the governor's desk so that she would veto it. And that was part of the fight. I've always engaged in the battle to support public education. We can't allow funds to be diverted from public schools to support private schools, while our public schools are not adequately funded. A year ago, Arizona received $2.4 million of the GlaxoSmithKline Avendia settlement. The Arizona Attorney General said it was going to be used for childhood obesity study. I objected to a study. There are thousands of studies that have been done. As a result, a stakeholder group was put together, and last Thursday, I learned the Attorney General established a competitive grants program to educate families and children at highest risk regarding the dangers of juvenile obesity and juvenile diabetes. It will be a 2-year program with participation of nonprofits, state agencies, and tribal governments, education programs, and awareness outreach for children from preschool to 12th grade. I'm so proud of this. You know, we run for election to work to make good things happen, but a lot of the work we do is about stopping bad legislation from doing harm. I look forward to continuing to be of service to the residents of my district and the state of Arizona for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we'll begin our lightning round. Just in an attempt to lighten the mood for tonight's debate, we're going to do a quick lightning round of this or that. This will allow us to get to know more about the candidates. Candidates, just please answer with one word. Ms. Cajero Bedford, CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC?
ABC.
Mr. Boldonegro, Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Cajero Bedford, Mac or PC?
Oh, geez. Barbara?
Mr. Boldonegro, Lumberjack, Sun Devil, or Wildcat?
Wildcat all the way.
Last set of questions. Ms. Cajero Bedford, Droid or iPhone or Windows?
Travis?
Mr. Boldonero, CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC?
MSNBC.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move into the audience questions now. Thank you so much. Our first question is for Mr. Boldonegro. Who have you been endorsed by, individuals and organizations?
Well, that's an interesting question. You know, choosing to take on this task of running in a contested primary against an incumbent opponent, what I found is that many organizations and elected officials and others of that sort aren't too keen to endorse a challenger. Everyone wants to stay with the incumbent. They want to stay with what's safe and what they know. And so that's what I found as far as seeking endorsements from political officials or big organizations. The support that I've gotten has been from the community and from the regular people there, the regular folks here on the ground, the teachers, the working class people, the plumbers, the people that go out to the voting booth and who want a better life for themselves and their children. The support that I've got has been tremendous. I've qualified for my Clean Elections funding already. I'm the first candidate to do so, and that's a show of the community support that I have right now. One particular elected official that has endorsed my candidacy is Senator Steve Gallardo from Phoenix. He endorsed my candidacy because he believes that I'm the strongest candidate in this race, and also he was very offended by the homophobic remarks that my opponent made towards him in the Senate. And he's a strong supporter of my campaign, and I'm very proud to have his support.
Thank you. Ms. Cajero Bedford, who have you been endorsed by, individuals and organizations?
Okay. I'm very proud of my endorsements. I have been endorsed by the SEIU, Service Employees International Union, the Arizona Education Association, the Sierra Club, Arizona List, Women's Political Caucus, Fraternal Order of Police, Arizona Stonewall Democrats, Planned Parenthood, Congressman Raul Grijalva, Supervisor Richard Elias, Mayor Jonathan Rothschild, Las Odelitas, and more. And I believe these endorsements do not come lightly. They know me because I have worked with them over the years. They know my issues. They know my stand. They know that I will, listen to both sides. And I have had a very good working relationship with a lot of these organizations.
Thank you. Next question, Ms. Cajero Bedford. What are your priorities? What would be your top priority if elected?
Oh gosh, one of the priorities would be the jobs. The jobs issue continues to be a real big issue because the state has not really recovered as quickly from the downturn that we had. One of the things that I tried to do this year and will work on again, and that was to have a return to work bill, so that someone could be in a training program with an employer and still collect their unemployment insurance. It passed handily in the Senate, but then it got stalled in the House. Also, we need to do more funding for the Office of Tourism. We got a little bit more money in the budget this year, but the image of Arizona has been very, very bad over the last few years. We've had a lot of negative press. So we need to spend more money for tourism and reinvent our image somewhat. I think that also, I know that would also create a lot of jobs because the funding for the Office of Tourism was cut a great deal, and jobs in that industry, after 1070, the amount of jobs lost in the hotel industry was really devastating.
Thank you. Mr. Baldenegro.
My platform is built around, one, building a sustainable green economy in Arizona, fighting for public education and bringing funding back to our public schools, and bringing the $2.6 billion that the legislature has illegally withheld from public education since 2000, protecting our environment and ensuring clean air and water for our future, for our kids, standing up for women's rights and gender equality and for human rights for all, standing up for working families and the attacks on unions. Those are what my campaign is built around. Particularly, what I think is of particular importance is education in the public schools. Right now we're seeing a concerted attack by the Republicans on public schools, starting with Superintendent Huppenthal, starting with the legislature. Their death by million cuts, cutting funding, like I referenced earlier, illegally withholding $2.9 billion making a push towards vouchers and charter schools. That's a real big fight that we have on our hands. The other one is protecting our environment and building a solar energy, making Arizona the #1 solar energy state in the country. There's no reason why we can't do that. Doing so would bring millions, if not billions of dollars into our economy and create thousands of jobs and protect our clean air and water. That's very important to me. The third thing on a general note is getting away from the extremism that's marked our state for so long and get back to what the majority of Arizonans want and what feels important. The extremism has hurt us in so many ways. It's not creating jobs. It's not building an economy. Instead, it's having the opposite effect, and it's destroying the Arizona brand and making us, unfortunately, a mockery in our state. And so fighting back to that extremism and getting back to what's important for Arizonans, that's what I stand for.
Thank you. Mr. Baldwin-Negro, please give one specific example of an action you have taken to improve the natural environment.
One thing that I have done is organize educational efforts around how energy works in our state, as far as where does the coal that we currently burn, where does it come from? How does burning coal affect the water and the health of Arizonans? How does that tie into CAP and the Central Arizona Project? How does that tie into Tucson? The coal comes from generally up north and it's burned up north, but believe it or not, it's tied directly here into Tucson, and it's something that a lot of people aren't able to connect the dots with. And so one thing that I did was to help organize educational efforts to make it easy for people to understand how to draw the links and to connect the dots. And I was very successful in that. People were astounded by how our energy system works in the state and how utilities lobbyists are dictating energy policy in the state and buying off legislators, immorally getting involved in the Arizona Corporate Commission elections, which I will sponsor legislation to make that illegal, where utilities cannot donate to Arizona Corporation Commission candidates. But that's a specific example of that.
Thank you. Ms. Cajero Bedford.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be able to talk about this because I have been working on the Painted Hills project for 10 years since it first started. And as part of the Gates Pass Area Neighborhood Association, I was very involved in working to and speaking to protect it, seeking to have the property bought over the years. And finally, in the legislature, I was able to stop a bill that some Republicans, Gowan and Stevens from the eastern part of the state, tried to get through the Senate. And that was, their bill required that the county or the city provide water to Painted Hills. And the bill passed handily in the Senate. And so after I saw that it had passed, I called some Tucson city officials, and I worked in the Senate, and between the two of them, I got the bill stopped in the Senate so that the water would not be allotted to the Painted Hills, and that stopped that process 2 years ago. And I was very, very pleased with that I was able to do that as part of my job as a legislator.
Thank you. Ms. Cajero Bedford.
Yes.
Next question. How would you be effective in a GOP-controlled Arizona legislature? Sure.
Well, it's not been fun, that's for sure. No, it's been tough. But I'll tell you, even though it has been tough and we're in the minority, we have had some successes. Last year, with the Medicaid expansion, the president of the Senate said to me this year, he said, you know, you Democrats have had Democrats had the best year you had last year in 20 years with that Medicaid expansion. That was a major, major happening. And this year, you know, while we are in the minority, we have been able to get the attention to a lot of these bad bills. Like Senate bill, you know, it passed in the Senate and it passed in the House. But the Democratic caucuses, the House and the Senate, got together with our PR people, and we steamed up the whole airwaves with what was going on. And I'll tell you how powerful that is. My sister is a flight attendant with American Airlines. When she got back the next day, after we had passed this bill, from her trip to Milan, I said, you know what happened? She said, I already heard. She was in Milan, and she heard about Senate Bill 1060 passing. And so she said, but that's how things pass. But because of all that attention that we got, CNN Worldwide, all of the news stations, we were able to stop, and we've done that with 1062, with other bills, because we are have been very, very active.
Thank you. Mr. Baldenegro.
I think it's getting back to what I had been talking about earlier, is reaching out and relating to what the majority of Arizonans, what's important to them and what matters in their lives. I think that a good example of a success, a bipartisan success, was the expansion of Medicaid in Arizona. There was a lot of Tea Party Republicans that were dead set against it, simply to spite President Obama. Their hate for our president was actually more important to them than providing health care to Arizonans and providing women's services and mental health care and all the important services that Medicaid provides. Their hate for our president was so strong that they were willing to deny the majority of Arizonans health care based on spiting President Obama. Eventually, the Medicaid expansion was able to pass, and I think that was a success in relating to what common Arizonans, what the average Arizonan is important in their lives. And so that's the approach that I would take, continue to take, and get to why these extremist bills, these extremist gun bills, these extremist anti-abortion bills, all the extreme politics that we're seeing from the Tea Party, why they don't help Arizona, why they don't create jobs, why they're not helping our economy, why defunding public education hurts the majority of Arizonans who are in public schools. That's the approach I would take. And I also take an exception to what my opponent said about 1062. I don't think that it was all the legislature who did that. I think there was a strong community presence, a very strong community presence, that was also very responsible for eventually killing that bill. And I went to rallies here in Tucson and Phoenix. Unfortunately, I never saw my opponent there, but the community support and response to that bill was strong and had a great impact on killing it.
Thank you. Mr. Baldenegro, how do you plan to improve public education?
We're in an unprecedented attack on public education in Arizona. It's something that I've never seen in my lifetime. Our school superintendent is behind it, the legislature. They're defunding public schools, putting districts in a position where they have to close down. As I mentioned, withholding $2.9 billion. It's pushing for charter schools and vouchers. There's a multi-pronged attack on public education. So the first step I would do is to bring it to everyone's attention in the state what the legislature has illegally done. And that, like I said, it's withholding $2.9 billion, and that's a serious amount. And that's something that maybe not all Arizonans know. It goes back to a voter mandate that public funding needs to be increased along with inflation, and concordantly with inflation. The legislature has not done that. They've willfully not done that. Therefore, they've stolen that much money from our kids and from our education. I think that resonates. I think that resonates with the average person, from people who are sending their kids to schools and getting the schools closed down, seeing teachers laid off, bigger class sizes. I think that resonates. So getting the legislature to be held responsible for that and getting that money put back would be the first step that I would take. I know that there's a case in court right now, and it's important, but to make sure that every Arizona knows what this legislature is up to, explaining to them what the voucher system is and what the code, the empowerment scholarships that they're talking about, which really means vouchers, and use common language that people can relate to and that they can understand why their kids are the ones being attacked. And I think that if you can get that across, they're not going to be happy. And so that's the approach that I would take to rebuilding our public schools and fighting back against these attacks.
Thank you. Ms. Cajero Bedford.
Thank you. Thank you. I sit on appropriations, and I have seen the cuts to the budget every year, and it's really very painful. And I have constantly fought against what was being done. For example, last year the governor proposed a performance incentive for schools that were to give them some money. And when I first heard the presentation from the governor's person the first week, I just knew that the math was going to be hurting the lower level schools. As a matter of fact, it was going to be costing them money. And so again, this was a part of where we didn't have the votes, the Democrats didn't have the votes to stop this piece of legislation, the performance funding. And so, I just kept beating at the bushes, and anytime I had the opportunity, talking about how bad it was, and I got the Arizona Education Association involved, and we put together some forums and press releases, and really just aggravated maybe the governor's people, but we did, to let people know what this program was really going to do. It was going to hurt the schools, not help them. And we need to, hopefully, with this election, the makeup of the legislature will be where we're more 50-50, closer. That I think that a lot of people have gotten tired of the extremism that they've seen and are looking to make some changes when it comes to election time. And I hope that we get a new school superintendent. So with all that, we've got some major changes coming this November. So we'll see what.
Thank you. Next question, Ms. Cajero Bedford. How did your family and upbringing shape you and your philosophy and the person you are today?
Oh my goodness, that's part of my closing remarks. Well, it was major because they all served. My father served for 5 years in the House and died in office, and then my mother replaced him, and she served for 24 years. And I was always, we were always helping. Family was always helping with the getting the mailings, going to different events, hearing different about issues. My mother would call me and ask me, I don't know how to vote on this. They're pressuring me from both sides. And so I was always involved. I've been involved in politics since, 1960. And I see the good that can come from politics. My mother finally it took 15 years to get her textbook bill passed. That's how difficult the legislature is. And that was when it was more moderate. And it wasn't a large amount of money at the time. But all that, I have seen the good. We talk about, terrible legislature or terrible whatever. It's good. Good comes. So that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Baldernegro.
The lessons that my family have taught me have greatly guided me, and the values that they've instilled in me. One thing that stands out is what they taught me is what it means to stand by your principles and to fight for them. My grandfather was a union organizer. He was beaten by cops. He was arrested, thrown in jail. He sacrificed a lot to fight for the families of that small town, and to fight for dignity is what they were fighting for. My mom and dad have done the same thing here in Tucson. They've been the example to me of what it stands to, what it means to stand by your principles and what's really important. They sacrificed a tremendous amount to do that, and that's the cost. That the hits that they take for doing the right thing and for standing by your principles, it's not easy. And they took those hits, and they did it because it was the right thing to do. That's the strong example that my parents have given to me, and as I've grown up and watching them and watching their character, it's awesome. And now that they are retired and not as active as they used to be, I feel that it's my duty to carry on and to fight for them and for the next generation. And these are the values that my family's given to me.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Baldernegro. What is your strategy for decreasing gun violence in our communities?
That's another issue, that we're in an unprecedented time of extremist gun fanatics, and just pushed by the NRA and by these pro-gun groups to have guns everywhere and to have assault rifles in a Chili's and in a restaurant and in a public building. And educational facilities. They want guns everywhere. And it's no coincidence that this also coincides with, it seems like, shooting after shooting after shooting that we're seeing on TV. And you don't get desensitized to it, but you start to see it happen over and over again, and you say, when are we going to stop? And when are we as a community as a society, going to stand up and fight this and do the right thing and say enough is enough? That's why last year I took it upon myself to do my part when Sean McCluskey had his plan, his threat to give away free shotguns in Heat 3 Tucson neighborhoods that he unilaterally decided were dangerous or where everyone needed a shotgun to walk around safe. Myself and others organized a group that raised money to give away free school supplies to those same neighborhoods. And we let the community decide what they wanted to see in their community more. Everyone with a shotgun for free or free school supplies. The response was overwhelming. They supported our initiative. We gave away school supplies, art supplies, sports equipment, and Mr. McCluskey never made good on his threat to give away guns. So I'm very proud of that.
Thank you. Ms. Cajero Bedford,
Go ahead.
what is your strategy for decreasing gun violence in our communities?
I tell you, it's really sad, it's really discouraging at the legislature. The gun lobbyists are there every single day, 2 of them, every single day. And they were defeated this year by the governor, vetoed 4 of their bills. I hope that the Congress will act, will have the courage to act. There have been about 79 school shootings this past year. It's really tragic. It's like, what is it going to take, finally, to get some of these people to feel that they can do without their guns? We hear in testimony, well, I need my gun to protect. Not one of these shootings has anybody ever said, I had my gun, I protected. It really does just the opposite. When law enforcement comes in, if somebody has a gun, they will think that that is the person that, is the killer. And it's really discouraging to see what the gun lobby has done. And I can't say that I can do anything except continue to veto any of their bills and stand up and speak against their bills. My son-in-law happens to have worked for alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, and he's very knowledgeable about what, the problems and the statistics of the gun violence. And it's, what he has told me is even worse than what we, of course, know here about it. And I don't know what it's going to take to change the mentality of gun owners to make it safer for the whole community. We try. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move into the candidates' questions. The candidates will have the opportunity to ask a question of their opponent. Ms. Cajero Bedford, would you like to go first?
Sure. Sal, in your buyback, your program that you did for the schools, can you tell me how much money you raised and how much you spent, please?
It wasn't a great amount. It was about maybe approximately $1,500 or so, and we spent generally all of it, $1,500.
$1,500.
Mm-hmm. And this was spent on school supplies, art equipment, art supplies, sports equipment. Basically, the general idea was to provide something in the community that will make a positive impact as opposed to guns. So we started out with very narrow with school supplies, but then we thought art enriches people's lives, sports enriches kids' lives, and so we expanded it to those things. And we gave away supplies to Monzo School, to Grijalva Elementary, in the Midvale Park neighborhood, and at the the Boys and Girls Club, the one in Pueblo Gardens.
Thank you. Mr. Baldenegro?
Senator Cajero Bedford, I'd like to ask you if you still defend the remarks, the homophobic remarks you made to Senator Gallardo as acceptable or appropriate.
I misspoke in an attempt at humor to my good friend, Senator Gallardo. I apologize to him. That's behind us. And I have the endorsement of the Arizona Stonewall Democrats. My friends from Phoenix are here. Neil and his wife, his husband, excuse me.
Thank you. Now we'll go into the closing statements. Ms. Cojerdo Bedford?
Okay, sure. Okay. I'm honored and proud to serve my constituents in District 3 and continue the fight. I have a solid record of fighting for support of public education, university funding, the environment, jobs, and defending equal rights in my role as a legislator. And I told you before, I'll tell you again, my endorsements, the SEIU, Arizona Education Association, the Sierra Club, Arizona List, Women's Political Caucus, Fraternal Order of Police, Arizona Stonewall Democrats, Planned Parenthood, Congressman Raul Grijalva, Supervisor Richard Elias, Mayor Jonathan Rothschild, and more. And these have not come just because I'm the incumbent. They have come because of the work that I have done, that they have seen. I think my work philosophy for my service at the legislature was given to me, as I told you before, by my parents who both served. My father, Bernardo Navarro Cajero, who served for 5 years and died in office, and my mother. And I have to say, and by my friend, former Senator Jorge Garcia, who said, "We leave our ego at the front door." And by this, a letter from the Speaker of the House that I received 1 hour before I was first sworn in 2013, as I was about to begin my first term in office. And here's a part of it. January 10th, 2003. Dear Representative-elect Cajero Bedford, your success will not be defined by how many bills you have introduced, or how long your speeches become, or how many meetings you attend, but rather by the character that other people will see demonstrated in your actions and deeds. You campaigned on ideas and philosophies. That is what got you elected, and this is what will continue to get you elected by the people who support you. Government must and shall and must serve the people, not the other way around. No government produces a product. Government is granted the opportunity to utilize the resources of the hard-working people of the state to protect and serve. May you always put principles before politics. I'm experienced, qualified, and there every day, fighting the good fight for our interest, and I'm effective because I do put principles ahead of politics. So I'm asking you to re-elect me, and thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Baldenegro.
First of all, I'm based on that statement, I'm very offended that my opponent would invoke the memory of the late Senator Garcia, given that his widow ran a primary campaign against you, ma'am. I'm very offended by that. I'd like to close my comments tonight by saying that the leadership that I've shown in the community is, I've shown that I'm the better candidate for this job, and that I will bring the type of leadership that I've shown to the Senate and be the strong progressive leader that this district deserves. Running on a platform of building a sustainable green economy, protecting public education, standing up for our environment and protecting clean air and water, defending women's rights and gender equality, and standing up for Arizona's working families. I thank you all very much for your support, and I hope that I can count on your vote in August. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, candidates, very much for participating in our forum. We thank you very much for taking the time to come and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to find out more about clean elections and the candidates running for office by visiting www.azcleanelections.gov. A video of this debate, as well as other clean elections debates, will be posted on the site within 72 hours of a scheduled debate. Thank you all for coming, and have a safe trip home.